Good evening, everyone. We're waiting for the others to come in. Oh, Michael is here. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, PJ.
Hola. Yeah, we're waiting for the others. I'm waiting for Tamilore, Faith, Jide Badmus. Yeah, let's just maybe a couple of minutes, 5, 10 minutes, just 5 minutes, and then we'll just. Okay, I can see Faith. I can see Jide Badmus. Just Tamilore left. Hello, Jide Badmus. Can you hear me? Please accept the mic. I want all the speakers to. So we'll get on with this. Okay, awesome. I think I'm still waiting for Tamilore, and Faith.
Okay.
So welcome, everyone. This is, the panel Literary Structures as Key to Poetry Evangelism. Or we're still waiting for our host. We apologize for the change of venue, the last minute change of venue. We're supposed to meet on Google Meet, and now we're here due to some administrative hindrances. So thank you. Just 2 minutes and we'll just start. 2 minutes. Okay, our 2 minutes has elapsed. I'm here. I'm here to see Faith. I'm here to see Tamilore. How do guys? What do we do? Like, I think we should just carry on because there are other people. The others are here in the audience, and I don't want us to waste any more time. Please, if Tamilore is here, she can signify when she comes. Just maybe send a personal message so I'll know how we're handling this. So good evening, everyone. Once again, it's 4:23 Nigerian time. You're welcome to the Benue Books and Arts Festival panel, Literary Structures as Key to Poetry Evangelism. I have with me here Michael, Imossan, Jide, Badmus, and we're still expecting Faith, Moyosore, and Tamilore Osho. Without wasting much of our time, I think I'll just start with the bios. Let me read the bios pending the time that Tamilore gets here. You guys unmute yourself. Since she's not here, I'm not doing this alone.
You are the
Mike.
host automatically. You become
No,
the
no.
host.
Let's calm down. No. Let's just calm down. Michael, please unmute yourself. This is going to be group convo. Let me invite Sweaty to. Okay, Tamilore is. Oh, well, she's here. Thank you, Lord. She's here. Sweaty, giving Sweaty a mic. Where's Faith? Faith is here. Okay, she's gotten the mic too. Faith, please unmute yourself too. Okay, we're complete. Glory. Tamilore, please wait. She's here now. We can see her.
Yeah, she's there.
I'm not imagining it. Let's keep her them. Tamilore, please check your DM. I've sent the request. Faith, unmute yourself, please.
Hi.
Thank you. So they know that everybody's invited to speak. Tamilore, please take the mic and carry on. Woo! She's here. Thank you. Let me mute myself now. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Wow.
Hey, is our network good?
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Good evening. I hope you can all hear me. Please.
I think you're directly in front of a fan. Sweaty does not want to take the mic. Hello? Okay, it's not a call. Tamilore, can you hear us? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're
I can
directly in
hear
front of the
you.
fan. Okay, awesome. Carry on.
Is it better now?
Way better, yeah, way better. But there's an echo. Maybe you're far from the mic or something.
Is this clear?
Yes. Carry on.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And apologies for the slight delay. I hope we're all doing good today. It's amazing to see a lot of people here. And I'm looking forward to us having a lively and interesting panel discussion today. So let's get into it. Welcome everyone to the Benue Book and Arts Festival and panel discussion. I'll just do a little intro of what the Benue Book and Arts Festival is about. So yes, brief introduction. The Benue Book and Arts Festival is a festival that celebrates the rich culture of global diaspora in Europe and Nigeria's Middle Belt, promoting local creativity and social impact across continents in a continuous cultural dialogue. organized by the Savage Arts, so Publishers and Savage Literary and Development Initiative. BBAAF brings together art, literature, and social impact through engaging activities, culminating in quarterly events in Nottingham, England, and a week-long hybrid summit in Maiduguri, Nigeria. And oh, I did not introduce myself. Apologies about that. My name is Tamilore Osho. I'm a writer and a poet, as a lot of you know. I see a lot of familiar faces and names here, so I'm excited to be among peers today. And we also have our panelists with us today: Faith, Moyosore.
Can you? Hello?
I thought it was my network as well. She's muted.
Hey, Tamilore, please unmute yourself. Yeah, this is what we're going to be doing. As soon as she has issues with our network, every other person just unmute yourself and start talking and just swear
As
the
soon as she
peace
goes, you
our
just
organ.
take over. Yeah?
Okay, I think it's our network is likely. So we're just going to carry on. She was introducing. Oh, she's back. Is she
Apologies
back?
about that, guys. My network
Well,
is. Yes, I'm here. My network is not stable, but I'll do my best. So yes,
um,
our first panelist is Faith Moyosore Abola. Our second panelist we have Michael Imossan, and then we also have Jide Badmus and also Pamilerin Jacob. As the session begins, I would ask that whoever asks questions should please type it out or save them for later during our Q&A segment.
oh no, she has done this to us. So please, um, let it be immediate, guys. Please, Imosor, unmute yourself. Faith, unmute yourself. As soon as
Hi.
my co as soon as she goes to us, just unmute yourself. That's the only way to survive this. Because I think her network is actually she told me earlier
Oh,
that the network might be shitty. So um based on what I know that we're here to discuss, let's just launch into the whole thing pending when she gets back. Uh, so poetry evangelism, yeah. I want to get your thoughts. It sounds so Christian, but it's a coined term. So I just want to know the background, what we're talking about. So poetry evangelism is who should speak first? The person that muted himself. Oh yeah, let's start from there. Who is muted? Who's muted? Ah, another. Wow, that was fast. Okay, okay. Let's start with Jide
I
Badmus then,
know.
since he has.
well,
I know.
Eh,
Pamilerin. So, good evening, everyone.
well,
Well, when you say evangelism, um, yeah, like you said, it sounds so Christian, but basically, it's like taking the good news, taking what you have, and sharing with others. So it's more like your poetry and everything you know about it, what you have experienced about it, your experience of poetry. You're sharing it with your community, the people around you, whether online, whether offline. Practically, that's just what comes to mind.
oh that's cool. Do we have Michael? Michael
Yeah.
Faye? Unmute your
Oh,
see.
sorry. We're just
Unmute
waiting for
yourself.
you to let us know when we can speak now.
Michael has not even spoken now.
Exactly.
Fair
The thing
point.
is, I want this to be. I don't want it to be one by one, like you are presenting.
Oh,
What that stuff in front of an audience. I want it to be as interactive as possible, since our lovely co-host, she's having issues with her network. So the best we can do for those who are listening is to just play it by ear and talk, please.
alright.
So yeah, Michael, Faith,
Yeah.
tell me what's your take on the topic?
Well,
Poetry evangelism. What does it mean to you?
obviously, the word evangelism feels a little Christian because it's mostly used in like the religious space. But I feel like evangelism as a word is basically at its core spreading a message. So you have a message and you're taking it to people. So, for example, in the religious setting, it's often like maybe the message of salvation and you take it to people. But when I hear poetry
Yeah.
evangelism, I see it as like a tool for taking the message of poetry to people. Personally, as a spoken word poet, I see poetry as a tool for raising awareness, sparking conversations, building connection. And I feel like poetry is such a powerful thing. In 1 to 3 minutes or in one page, you can make people feel something they've never felt. You can make them think about things they've never thought about. And I think that that's very powerful. And so, for something so powerful, for something that can really transcend spaces, it's important that we take it to people. And we have to find ways to take poetry from like the page to like everyday places. So, how do we get poetry away from literary spaces, the academic space to everyday life? So, taking poetry to schools, to communities, making people that are not writers or poets experience poetry and love poetry in the way that we love, and also making poetry not just something that we enjoy, like people that are on this space, for example, but making poetry things that something that anybody that loves any other creative art form can also enjoy and be a part of. So it's about spreading the message of poetry, but also taking poetry from our own little circle and space to the mainstream. That's how I see it, anyways. So yeah.
Nice. Michael, do you?
Hello, hello.
Oh, once again, wait, before you talk, thank you all for being here. I can see Serviu. I think I saw. Okay, there's Jackie in the audience. There's Ilya. Thank you all for being here. There's Taiwo. There's Zainab. Thank you, Clark Kent. Wait, Clark Kent is I Echo. This young man. Um, there's there's Joba. Thank you, Michael Akuchi. Thank you, Adidayo. Thank you, Munirat. Thank you. So, Michael, carry on. Add to the
Hello, everyone.
yeah.
So, like everyone said, um, evangelism is Christian. Nonetheless, this is personal. If one were to see poetry the way I see it, that is as God, one would have faith in poetry. One would have love for poetry,
Hmm.
so that one would want to preach poetry to everybody at every time, because in the way a Christian would want to tell you about God because they love you and wouldn't want for you to make hell and all of that. The same way someone that loves poetry should want to preach poetry to someone because they want them to feel that that they want them to have that experience, that feeling that they've had. And in doing that, um, you have to navigate several mediums in order to do that. You have to take advantage, leverage on so many stuff, so many structures in order to achieve that. So I just feel that evangelism is the best and proper word to use here because it talks about faith. Like it links to faith and piety and belief and passion or something. Yeah.
Hmm. That's really cool. Thank you. So, I heard basically what we have on ground. There's people who think that even though it sounds Christian, it's a good fit. Yeah, like Mike said. I just want to sit a little with what someone said earlier about spreading it everywhere and making sure it goes beyond our circle. There's a way people look at you when you're like, "Oh, I'm a poet." There's this. They look at you like you're this rare artifact. Yeah. And I think, in as much as that feels good, long term, the goal of poetry should be that it's spread abroad. It's like I usually say sometimes that I would love for, or mute yourself, guys. You have muted yourself again. I refuse to do this alone. Thank you, or mute yourself. So, so just give me feedback as I'm talking, right? Interrupt me if something crosses your mind. Um, so like I say to myself sometimes when I'm discussing with people, I want to enter, office space, and I don't just want to see, in as much as visual art is amazing, it's beautiful. Yeah, I also want to see poems hanging on walls. I want to see quotes from poems on people's shirts. And one of the ways to do that, I think, I mean, it brings us to the next thing. How do we make that possible? How do we make it spread abroad? How do we, in the Christian term, right now, go from Samaria to the UK? I mean, this festival that we experienced is a product of someone's obsession with poetry evangelism, right? Wafswedi here. Thank you. He's muted. He should be muted, but he is a part of the space. And what we're doing right now is a result of someone's obsession. So I just want to throw it out there that how do we make this much more effective, much more effectual, so that it's not just in quotes. I think, like Faith will say sometimes, that poets reading poets. How do we do that? How do we make
So,
that possible?
so if I may cut in, um,
Yeah.
I remember like some 7, 8 years ago. It was around this
Mm-hmm.
time. That's quite funny. It was a Valentine's Day, and it fell on a weekday. I think that was the first time I ever shared my poem in the office. So I wrote a poem, I typed it out, and I stuck it on the notice board. So yeah, my boss came, read it, people came, read it, and yeah, from then, most times I find myself or I find them looking for me when there's a need to write something. You get. So
Yeah.
I don't want to see um yeah, everything we've said earlier on, they are on point, but I want to see poetry more like a lifestyle than faith. A
Hmm.
lifestyle is wherever you find yourself, you don't it can't be hidden. Is what you display. You get.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I was having a discussion with a friend, and I said, when we look at the Yoruba language, um, people who are non-poets speak, and it's full of metaphors. But because they are not aware,
True.
because they don't know those devices, it feels normal. I can remember a lot of
Hmm.
things my mom would say to us when we were small, and I'm playing them back now, and I'm looking at it, and this is pure poetry. You understand? So for me,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere I go, I share it. I don't I find ways of showing it. I don't look at this is an office, you can't do this. No. So it's just what I want to chip in for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually really
Yeah.
like
That.
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 Oh, okay.
No. Continue. Continue.
I actually really like that, and I think that that also aligns with how I also think about it. Because, like we're saying, evangelism. For you to evangelize, you need to go out. You need to make it active. You need to go and meet people. And instead of us waiting for people to come to us to be interested in literary events or festivals, what are the ways that we can take poetry into the world? How can we leverage even the digital space right now? Social media is such a great tool. We can put our works out there for people to have access to, from short form videos to graphic arts and design. Also, like collaborating with other art forms as well. I think that there's this sometimes people limit themselves within this space to only want to collaborate with poets, which is fine. I'm all for collaboration, but if you want to reach a new audience of people that are not necessarily into poetry but like are into other art forms, like let's say comedy or dance or music, I think that also collaborating outside of our own poetry space can also be perfect. So in that way, if a poet collaborates with a comedian or a musician, anybody that likes music can also like fall in love with poetry. I think spoken word poets are somewhat doing that now, but finding ways to collaborate with people that are not only within the poetry space as well, and then also like taking poetry to everyday life, to communities. I really like what you said about putting poetry on like a shirt or like a frame. We can also have poetry exhibitions. Poetry can not only be experienced through reading a book or just performance. We can find other innovative ways to let people meet poetry where they are. So anybody that's going to a gallery, if there's a poetry exhibition there, it might spark up their interest and then they can now attend it. So I think we need to start thinking about poetry beyond just the literary academic space, having discussions, having events, but how can we put poetry in other spaces? How can we fix poetry in unconventional spaces that it might not already be, put into? Because poetry if you compare poetry to the other literary platforms, for example, fiction, novels, non-fiction, they don't have the characteristics of poetry in terms that it's short, it's brief, and it's easy to bend into a lot of things. And I feel like we need to leverage that strength of poetry and use that to put it in spaces that are already like welcoming to creatives, but um also perfect as a way of like fitting the puzzle in there. I hope you understand what I'm saying, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Mike, do you have is this still with us?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, yeah, carry on.
Um, I I admire what you said about what Faith said about leveraging on the strength of poetry and that it is scarce and can fit into several stuff. Several stuff. Um, I I think that we will always have to go back to funding and our government and so many of those other structures that we are lacking. I think that we are lacking the structures in our government funding us. We are lacking um, and we're lacking in avenues which would make people appreciate poetry. For instance, we are going to compare ourselves to other clients. They have programs, they have things that give people that sense of professionalism when approaching poetry. They have begun to give a structure in which poetry is respected, even if by non-poets. You understand? So you tell someone I'm a poet, and they respect you for that because they know that it is something regarded in this society. However, compared to Nigeria, we do not have that. So since we do not have that, and since we do not have that support from our government, I think we individually have to give ourselves that kind of structure. On Serious Collective, we're doing it, Poetry Column, we're doing it, 2035, we're doing it. We could expand more.
Yeah.
That is why I began by saying I love that we chose evangelism because evangelism talks about faith, piety, sacrifice. When you talk about piety, when you talk about faith, you talk about sacrifices. Lots of people are sacrificing a lot to make sure that they spread poetry to the wider audience. Like I mentioned on Serious Collective and the rest of them. I think that if we have piety, the Badmus is doing so. If we have piety, that faith, that believe in poetry, we want to evangelize and we want to spread it. So we have to make those structures for ourselves since the government are not doing anything. Yeah, that's my one coin.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. I hope the network is clear enough for everyone to hear. Because I think from my end, listening to Michael, it sounded a little rough.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm not the only one. Okay. I think it's possible that it is what's it called?
That's my
Maybe he's using AirPods or
airport.
something.
That's my airport.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you, everyone, once again for being with us. Please make sure you tweet about the panel that we're having. Title is Literary Structures as Key to Poetry Evangelism. We've had Jide Badmus talk about the necessity of making it more like a lifestyle We've had Faith talk about collaborating with other art forms like dancers, comedians, and we've had Mike talk about how piety is a necessary component of spreading poetry in the evangelistic terms. I want us to explore this balance that writers are supposed to be, writers, we love being away from the noise. Yeah, that's why we're all impressed with Chimamanda's rollout. Who is impressed? I know we're all impressed. It's amazing. Yeah, the rollout that she has for the forthcoming novel. So how are we supposed to balance that isolationist tendencies that we have and making sure that the work actually gets to where it needs to get to? Because we're in a world where every aspect of our lives seem like it must be branded, right? This LinkedInification of of what it means to be an artist. So how do we make sure that in our bid to want to evangelize poetry, we don't lose that sense of self, that part that needs to be preserved for the craft to be as urgent as it needs to be, as All right, please, you guys, unmute yourselves. I'm not going to do this alone again. Let me start with Jide Badmus. Hey, have I been talking to myself? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So yes. Somebody step in. Oh, I can see Dami Ajayi and Dayo. There are new people joining. Thank you. Welcome. All right. Jide Badmus, carry on.
Okay, so sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Hey.
Sorry.
I knew I was.
No. I was actually going to a different.
Sounded too quiet.
When you started with the isolation part, I was actually having my thoughts going elsewhere. But the way you ended it, so that's why I just wanted to clarify. Sorry.
Okay. Now the thing is that everything I said is not written down.
I think you basically said, how can we balance
Okay, yes. Carry on. No, carry on.
I wanted to no, I felt like I reminded you what I understand by what you said, by the way. This is my own interpretation. Is how do we balance with the you said LinkedInization or something like that. How do we balance honoring the work or writing our work, balance it with like publicity, marketing and pushing it out there? Then you mentioned Chimamanda's rollouts. Basically, I think you're talking about the balance between marketing and publicity and the actual writing, right? Or is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right, cool.
How do we navigate that as artists and all that?
On to you, Mr. Jide.
All right. Well, the actual writing, like you said, needs you to sometimes or most times seclude yourself and for clear thoughts and work to be done. But as much as possible, I tell people that the art of writing is not just the writing, and it's never complete. It's not complete until it is shared. So it's like a cycle. You plant, you water, you give the fruits out. You also get feedback. So one way or the other. For me, I'll just use my own example. Usually, I try to share as much as possible. I do snippets a lot of time. Not as much as I used to before, but in the past, you will see that there's no week that goes by without me sharing something on Facebook. At times, it's just an excerpt of an ongoing poem. At times, it's a short poem and, a teaser, so to say.
So people should do that more
I
often.
think so. I think it gets us closer to our readership. It gets us. So when you share snippets, when you share short forms of or excerpts of your poems, for example, they are usually the catchy parts. They are usually the easily understandable parts, and you find people relating to it. You find people, engaging with it. At times too, I feel it helps our thought process. It gives us other direction to go with what we are writing. So
Okay, Mike, let me switch up the dynamic. Let's go to Mike now, and then we'll come back to Faith. Yeah.
Coming back,
Hey, well.
coming back to me again.
yes, now.
Yes, yeah. I want to switch up I don't want to go through that monotonous Jide Badmus, Faith, Michael. So I'm switching it up. So do you have something to say to considering what you just noted about the need to constantly, not constantly, but to share your work as often as possible? The question is about the balance between publicity and that private practice of writing itself, and how there's a demand
Um,
or there's a requirement in our world right now that if you can't be an invisible artist basically right now. So yes, let's get your thoughts on that.
you can actually be an. Can you hear me? Is it better now?
Yes. It's not better, but we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry for that. You can actually be a ghostwriter. Actually, just pop up and show them. But yeah, I agree with I also want to relate to Faith when she said that poets should try as much as possible to collaborate with other forms of art and other people, arts, comedians, musicians, and all of that. Like she said, the spoken word, they are doing that. You see them, do stuff with musicians. You see them do stuff with percussionists, all those people. So it gives like what I am Monet's album that won the Grammys. She did it with other artists. She did it with percussionists and all of that, and it was beautiful. It's something that you can easily go to Spotify and then you can get access to. So we could also leverage on other mediums. We could read our poems with sounds and then upload them on Spotify so people can easily access them. Like Jide said, we can always share
Mhm.
excerpts of our works and then people can access them. We can always collaborate with artists whenever they are doing their art exhibition. So they have an art painting and then there is a poem beside it, like something Chestnut Review did just some few months ago where they had all their art and then poets respond to the art and then they made an album of it and all of that. So
Yeah.
an anthology, not an anthology of it, and all of that. So we could always have that form of collaboration, that form of synergy. We could also always have poets. I think okay, I don't think Jide has done that, but he did it with an artist. But we could also I think that poets I don't know, I don't want to I don't want to I don't want to assert.
No, make
I don't
recommendations.
want to assert, but I think that poets are too cautious of themselves. I would always want to, just like you're eager to see Kendrick feature J. Cole. I'm always wanting to
Yeah.
see a poet feature another poet in their collection, in their full length collection, so that we read, so that
Yeah, but
Interesting.
let's say there are people that would want to read Pamilerin, and then there are people that would want to read Jackie Danko. And then if two of them collaborate,
Mm-hmm.
then we have those two group of people coming together to read this book, and then we have an expanded audience in that sense. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same way, it's the same way musicians do. So we have that expanded audience, and I'm always looking to do that. But I think that point of the concept of themselves, so they just want to be personal about their stuff and they don't collaborate. I think that
Mm-hmm.
collaboration is something we should look forward to. It's an angle we should leverage.
Okay, so in this sense, you're talking about not necessarily that beyond collaborating on projects that we always advise, oh, collaborate with these people, collaborate with these people. We should also learn to collaborate even at the manuscript level.
Yeah, with ourselves. Yes.
Hmm. Okay, that's incredible. Faith. Um.
Yeah. I feel like everyone has already said the key things. I would try to answer your question, but I'll also use it as an avenue to open up another question. I don't know if that's fine.
Okay.
But I remember seeing a post by a poet and on LinkedIn, and she was talking about the struggle that she's going through right now between trying to publicize her work, trying to get accepted by literary magazines, to share the poem on social media that will go viral, to get publicity, and also balancing that with writing what she wants to write. Because the truth is, when we're talking about marketing and publicity, a lot of these platforms have expectations. There are certain kinds of poems that go viral. There are certain kinds of poems that are accepted for things. There are certain themes and topics that are gaining popularity. And it's often a struggle for poets to balance writing what they want to write, but also writing what they think would also get them to a new space. And for me personally, it's something that I've had to balance. I remember having that conversation with the person that I think is a double-edged sword, and we just have to find a way to play the dance. So write the things that we want to write, but also if we need to write certain things to welcome new people into our space, and then they now find out, they now like experience the core things, I think that's also fine.
Yeah.
But what the problem would be is if everything you do is just for publicity and marketing, you might end up not loving your work, because if you're sharing excerpts that you think is beautiful but people are not engaging with it, it can also feedback stuff. And also, the things that do well online are not even the best representation of what is good. So even the most popular people, the people that go mainstream, I've seen WhatsApp posts of people say, oh, this person that went mainstream, this is not poetry and all of that. So that's also a double-edged sword, because it can also impact this evangelism that we're doing. Because I've had people say, oh, if the poetry is not done this way, that's not poetry. And I think that's also something that we need to find ways to balance, because with evangelism, with marketing, with publicity, we're trying to push poetry, but there are elements around the edges that might not be a good reflection of what poetry is, that we also need to be careful with, both as artists ourselves, but also like as people pushing the ecosystem as a whole. So I don't know what you guys think about that in terms of balancing publicity, trying to make people find poetry accessible through easy to access bite-sized content, short form videos or short form write-ups, writing things that have a wider reach, or balancing that with just doing whatever you want to do and everybody should deal with it. But also balancing people that don't know anything about poetry, the first thing they get exposed to is some of these things that we don't think is a representation. How can we counteract that? So yeah.
Okay, so can I,
Yeah.
Pamilerin, can I come?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yes.
Before I go to that, I just wanted to say something about other ways to make our work. So there's this poet, John Fasciano or something, and
Okay, yeah.
most times on his Twitter or his Facebook, what he does is he gives like a poem template, whereby even a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old can take that template and write a similar poem. And I look at his posts most times, I see engagement and all that. So that just came to mind. Because there's also this TikTok trend at a point where, or was it Instagram, where they say something like, in English, I say I'm angry.
Oh,
In
yeah.
poetry, I say there's a fire burning, those kind of stuff. So I think those are also ways whereby, create trends where people can. But going to Faith's question, so to say, one thing I've also realized is that trends are not always okay. We are still concentrating so much on the digital part of the evangelism, so to say.
True.
So we have people who I have friends who are not active online. So how do we even get
Yeah.
to these people? So that's one part of it. The second part is that for me, I don't know, maybe people get to that stage. Maybe some of us are just stubborn. I just write what I enjoy writing. I do what I enjoy reading. That's what I write. So
Yeah.
whether it's 5 people reading or 50 people, I think there's always an audience for everybody. And I think when it comes to evangelism, it's not about forcing ourselves. It's not about forcing poetry on people. It's about putting it out there and let people find it. We have, when we go to the faith side, we have people who preach and they concentrate so much on faith. Some concentrate so much on miracles and all that. You get, there are different, so we're all evangelists. We have our different paths and different messages. So I just think the best way to do it is just be you. You will find your audience.
Okay. I want to let's pivot a little back to the title of the panel itself. It's about, I think we're still discussing a little too much on the personal level. So regarding what Faith and Michael have said, I want to also touch on the fact that there is little that each person as an individual can do. I mean, look at Otuke's TL. If you go to Otuke Umukuru's TL, he's posting poems daily, like nearly hourly, safe, yeah. And I feel like there are days that he doesn't feel like doing that. I'm just assuming now. I don't know, right? But I want to assume that there are days where he doesn't even feel like posting a poem, but there must be something that is driving that impulse. And if there's something I've learned from, say, Servio now, like years back, I was talking with Servio and he emphasized the fact that passion will dwindle, will run out. No matter how passionate everybody here is about something, you're going to have seasons in your life where you're really tired, you're sick, you're exhausted, you can't really push your work. So this is where I personally think that structures have a role to play. We need to put in place a structure that whether this person dies, so and so continues. Yeah. Whether this person falls sick for 7 months, so and so continues. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when Billy Collins was like the poet laureate, for instance, he brought out a project. His major project was I think this anthology of poems that before it became an anthology, it was reading poems in high schools every morning. Apart from their principal announcing the usual announcement, there would be a reading of a poem every morning. And at the end of the 3 months, it became this anthology, that 180 poems anthology that I think a lot of people have read and they love. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. Something that is so ingrained, because when we're talking about publicity, a part of me knows that publicity has to be so in your face, because best believe people are not going to necessarily agree with the type of poems that you're pushing. Look at Rupi Kaur. Regardless of the fact that she's doing that publicity so well, Faith said there are people that are going to comment. Wait, am I talking to myself? Wait, can you hear me?
You now.
Okay. So I just wanted to. sorry. I just wanted to be sure. Okay, look at Rupi Kaur now. So popular, so awesome, right, in our own field. But there are people that have issues with that type of poems. But there has to be. What are the things that we need to do to ensure that? Because that's really what this panel is about. On a personal level, we all have responsibilities, but we need to put in place structures that will push poetry, whether I don't feel like logging into Twitter that day or not. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what are the things we can do? What are the projects what are the collaborations that are necessary? Let me start with a suggestion that I have on my own. There are people who have like literary boards. I follow a lot of art boards where I don't know how they run them, but it's a suggestion that I think we can all try. Art boards for various poets that you love or whatever. I don't know the IT behind it. I don't know how they do it. Maybe the person is posting it every 3 hours, or there is an AI behind it. But that sort of project, that sort of idea, we know about poet bots here. I follow a couple of them. I follow like Ansextin, Plath, even African, is it African literature bot or something too,
African
that
poetry, but
posts quotes. Yeah, there's this one. Yeah, African poetry bot too. You see, now look at the African poetry bot. I'm pretty confident the person got occupied
Yeah,
with other
yeah,
affairs,
true.
and now that project has been put on hold. So that's what structures are here for. They work whether the founder is tired, whether the founder has necessary obligations that they need to pay attention to elsewhere. So how do we please please, if you're in the audience and you want to even help us, how do we go past that? What are the things we can put in place to avoid these issues? Because this issue is as ancient as even in the 90s they were facing the same thing. In the 2008, 2009, after Next newspapers collapsed. Do you understand? There's nobody to put poetry in what's it called, the newspaper space again. So we need more of that. You understand? So please
Can I just
contribute.
say something?
yeah,
Absolutely.
So I think that one of the key issues that I've noticed, and I think it's something you just highlighted, is the longevity and the sustenance.
Yeah.
Often literary platforms come and go, people start up things. There's so many challenges in our space. There's the funding issue, there's other commitments, and
Mhm.
it's like a repetitive thing. It's like a circle. Like new people come up, they face the challenges and they go. I think that we can leverage long-standing institutions. I think universities are on that tapped
Universities.
because there's this passing
Mm-hmm.
on format that universities are run. So even university societies, for example, if people graduate,
Yeah.
they still have the raw structure for maybe if somebody's in 400, has been leading this thing for 400 level and has been leading this thing for 4 years. If people join in 100 level, 200
Yeah.
level, they can still continue that mission because they've learned firsthand. So I think that we need to leverage universities, even for archiving, even for like slams, even for magazines.
Mm.
For example, in the UK, a lot of the universities here, they do a lot of things in the poetry scene, from like poetry magazines to poetry, inter-university poetry slams. So I think that
Mm.
universities in Nigeria specifically are often long-standing. They don't just close up as fast as literary organizations close up because they still have some sort of support. So I think that if we can leverage that university space, think about creating things that are
Mm.
tied to the university. I know there are people that are already doing it. I think you're doing something in Babcock, but like I think
Yeah.
that's something that is greatly undertapped. There are a lot of students that have time, energy, and interest. If we can tap into that, I think it can help with the longevity, the sustenance, and also in terms of even reaching a wide audience because there's so many universities. It can be an inter-university something. So that's something that I
All
wanted to
right.
mention.
Well,
But yeah.
I've even written it down. We talk inter-university slam. Next, who else wants to? If you're in the audience and you have something to add, please let's can just signify. At least
So
Michael, are you there?
for
Okay, yeah, Jide.
there are two Michael.
yeah,
There's Michael Akucho.
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
Michael on the panel. So for me, yeah, most of these things are not totally thought through, but yeah, I think we should involve guys in the tech more.
Tech.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we have a lot of poets that one way or the other have abandoned us and gone to the tech
Yes.
world.
So,
And I'm expecting
um,
I say
that
a lot.
I'm actually, we need them to actually even come together and
if not for
collaborate with
passion,
us.
that or two would have run away.
Yeah. For
Because
me,
that guy,
I
continue.
think I usually say this, everything starts from, at times you look at the big picture, but sometimes
Mm,
what we need to do is to start small. We've been saying
absolutely.
collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. First, we need to look for like minds. Hmm?
Sure.
Two,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 people, and we start something. Most
Mm,
likely, the 4 or 5 of them will not get busy at once. the five of them fire, the passion will not die at the same time. You get that kind of a thing. Then we can spread. I used to watch this podcast, Stick to Football, by Gary Neville, Roy Keane, and I look at it, I look at the kind of stories they tell. We should also look at maybe poetry in the sense that we don't always need to read poems, for example, or talk about our processes. But the backstories, for example, see me and Danny sit down with, Swedi or something, and we, reminisce, talk about stuff that happened. Well, you get that kind of a thing. Just an example, yeah. But I think we're not tapping tech enough. That's what I just thought.
Yeah, I think I also agree with that. And I wanted to just add one more thing. Also, in terms of that collaboration, what you said about, because when I was saying collaboration, I was talking about the individual level. But I think even at the institutional level, we can also collaborate. The existing literary organizations or platforms or poetry platforms can also see ways they can collaborate with organizations in those other art forms as well. So if me as a person, I cannot organize something on my own, if let's say maybe an Agbowo or even poetry column MND, if there's something you can do with another organization that is in that space and you collaborate together, I think that's also another way to push it forward as well. So I just wanted to mention that collaboration does not even have to be only one-to-one. It can also be organization to organization. So yeah.
In support of what Faith just said, I was going to say
Yeah.
there are lots of pockets of organizations, pockets of magazines, pockets of institutions in Nigeria. I think that if these pockets of organizations come together to form something sustainable, we could have something like if they all come together and have to deliberate on ideas to do something, one thing that is sustainable, then we can have something. For instance, as much as I know that the ATDS is a big stuff over there and it's supported by schools and all of that, but I think that it's pockets of organizations, pockets of individual people with their stuff that came together to say, okay, let's get this thing moving. So I think that we all have our political and has its resources, Agbowa has its resources, no matter how small and no matter how little it is. If they all come together and say, let us do something sustainable for Nigeria, for the Nigerian poetry scene, then they can do something. We can do something sustainable for the Nigerian poetry scene. And that, I will have to make reference to this. I have once seen something about the Nigerian Poetry Prize somewhere at Edayo, and I've not heard about it anymore. And I think that to carry that burden alone or to carry it with some kind of group of people is something that would wear one out. But if pockets of these organizations that all have that like minds, like they said, what poetry in Nigeria came together, maybe they would achieve that.
That's true. The Nigeria that project, it requires. That's the thing, is collaboration that everybody's
Because you can't do it on
anticipating
your
and
own.
looking.
Let's be real.
Absolutely.
You finish your money trying
That's
to do it.
at least based on what I know regarding that. For instance, that particular project, it's it's best done, and that's why it didn't launch into it as some one man thing. That's the best approach, in my opinion, to just hold off until there's enough collaborative effort to ensure sustenance. So you're welcome once again. We'll soon be done. This is the Bene Book and Arts Festival panel, Literary Structures as Key to Poetry Evangelism. We've touched on a couple of things. We're currently at the stage of determining the ways we can effectively propagate poetry on a structural level. So far, we've had Michael mention that we should ensure that we collaborate even down to the manuscript level, the way artists do, Kendrick featuring J. Cole type collaboration.
There was
Jide
Jide
Badmus.
featuring Pamilerin now. We had that.
Yeah. We had
There are
that.
joint
Yeah, we had that years
anthologies as
ago.
well that you guys have done.
Yes, we've done that in 2019, and there's
Yeah.
also Jide Badmus also talked about make sure sharing your poems. Don't be embarrassed about sharing them. He also mentioned the underutilization of tech um, so far. Then Faith she touched on the universities that we're not utilizing them enough. She has also mentioned poetry exhibition, that we need to do more of that. And there's also now I want us to settle on this, and after this, maybe we'll round up, close up the whole thing. Thank you all for being a part of this. If you have questions, just put them in the comments, and and if you want to add something, please request the mic. Honestly, I want to make it as interactive as possible. Now, I know we've talked about the stylistic choices that the things we might need to sacrifice for the sake of evangelism. I just want to maybe circle back a little bit, because I know if I'm going to if I'm going to evangelize poetry, I'm not sure I'm going to use Okigbo as much as I love him. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure I'm going to use Peter Akinlabi, right? I'm deliberately mentioning. No, do you get what I'm saying? I'm
I get.
deliberately mentioning people whose poems have a near obscure nature. So let's let's settle there a little bit. The sacrifices that might need to be made for the sake of evangelism. You want to evangelize poetry, you might not be able to push forward, some poems. At least some poems don't have mass appeal. That's the word for it. So how do we navigate that? Because I believe that. Okay, let me start from me. Here's what I believe. Even though I know that I might not be able to use Okigbo for the evangelism, I'm still going to put Okigbo for instance, when I'm giving the person a group of poems that, enjoy this, I know you enjoy it, I'm still going to put Okigbo there. I'm going to put one poem, and then, because that's what Servio did for me years ago. Servio, I don't know, he's going to come up a lot, sorry about that, guys, but he exposed me to Rupi Kaur type of poetry, and exposed me to Derek Walcott's type of poetry, so much so that 5 years later, when I'm looking back, I'm like, I didn't understand this poem back then. I get it now. Do you get what I'm saying? So it didn't keep it away from me because he's not going to get it yet. And that's the opinion I have about so-called obscure poetry in the bid to evangelize. I do not think we should keep it on the back burner. I think you should keep it all out there. Just be as omnipresent as possible about it. And then eventually the audience will grow into it. So yeah, you guys contradict and tell me I'm wrong and all
I think I actually agree with you, to be honest. And I think my opinion is quite similar to you. Even though there's a lot of debate about it, I think that every type of poetry has a part to play in this mission or vision. Those kind of
Yeah.
poems that we might have issues with. Me, I like all types of poetry, Sha. So I don't know, but the kind of poems that people might have issues with. So maybe the more simpler, more straightforward poems. I think they are necessary and they are helpful. It's just like a child is born into the world and you put the child in a university.
Hey.
The child needs to start from kindergarten. It needs to start from secondary school.
So yeah, you don't start
That's
another
not what
debate.
I'm
So those
saying.
poems
Okay,
are
let me
kindergarten.
let me
Hey,
give the
please.
opinion. What I'm just trying to say is that it's a way for it's like a window. Okay, let me use music
Hmm.
for example. There are different artists that have different types of songs. They have the songs they made
Exactly.
for commercial purposes, so they are lead singles.
Yeah.
The lead singles are also good, but they also have songs that they made just because of love and interest, and those ones are not often as popular or as mainstream. So let me not use
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten. So those poems, they are more like the lead singles, the more popular, accessible ones that can serve as like a window or a door to poetry. Because most people, for me now, I know that it's from Repricor's type of poetry that me I say like in poetry. From quotes, I was very active on Tumblr in like 2015. I was always reading all those short stuff, and that's what made me interested in poetry. So if you start from the ones that require a lot more time to navigate and interpret, it might discourage people, because I've had people tell me I don't like poetry to my face, and I'm like, why don't you like poetry? They're like, you guys just like to make simple things complicated. Like, life does not have to be hard, that they're already going through a lot in life and we like to make their life harder. So there are people that don't like poetry at all, and those kind of people, obviously it's not our place to try to convince them, but it can be helpful if there's diversity in what they have access to. And there are certain poems that are written in that way, not because they are bad. I don't even think writing a poem in a straightforward way is a bad thing. I just think that it has a place and it can help with passing the message. So I agree that we shouldn't shelve some things, even though there are people that are always debating that they don't like the poems that are becoming popular. But I think that they're helping us, for people to know more about poetry, for people to be more interested in what we are doing as poets. And I think that that's fine. Me, I write all kinds of poems, the ones that I feel like, yeah. And I think that everything has a place. So that's what me I think personally.
Okay.
This is not
I'll
in
still
that
come back. We
garden.
could
See,
still write
they are
the
not
gist.
writing
So,
before they go and say fake text. That,
so,
hey,
so if I may step in,
please, oh,
for
I did not say
for
I did not
me,
mention anybody's name. I'm just saying.
Word.
for me, simplicity is not a bad thing. I even think simple poems are actually quite difficult to make. So putting that aside, um, when you ask people about Jide Badmus, the main thing people will tell you is erotic poems.
Yeah.
I once, but that's just my method. That's the way I share my kind of works. That's the way I think I can get to people. Anyone who has read Obaluaye would see that basically there are non-errors. Yes, you might find imagery that, metaphors that have those kind of, but practically, the reason I share my erotic poems more often is to be able to reach a wider audience, is to engage more people.
Yeah.
So that's also
I was about to get married, man. But okay.
well, if you
Love
say so. But I think one thing we need to agree on is poetry at times is almost classist. We want to dictate how it should be. We want to say this is poetry, this is not
Space no
poetry.
go end though. This one we're all living at the top.
No, but that's just the reality. We mentioned rupee, and I've had arguments with people about rupee, and I had to bring out. I said, what makes a poem? The imagery, and I brought out a very simple poem from one of our books, and I asked, please, can you analyze this for me? So really, it's not really about the simplicity or how obscure they might sound. I also think one other thing we are not doing is, or we should do, so to sound positive, is how would I say it? Our medium of sharing these poems. For example, we have people who don't who don't read much. We have people who are attracted to audio. We have people who love visual stuff more. So I think exploring all these things will help us reach more people. I have a short poem on a graphic, design as small graphic. Like you said, you talk of lines on t-shirts and all that.
Yeah.
Small frames with simple lines. You get? So,
Yeah. I do.
So that's just what I think. I think one other thing is our attention span. People's attention span these days require that you also don't come with something that might bore them. You know,
But that's sad.
short. It is, but that's the reality.
We can just
That's
balance
really,
both, I
really
guess.
sad. Oh, okay. See, I'm going to sound like a fanatic now. That's really sad. Oh my god. Okay. I understand. Wait. I'm not talking as someone that is hosting now. Let me do my panel part.
Yeah.
I get this need to sacrifice certain stylistic choices for the sake of the mass appeal or whatever. But for me, my opinion still remains that they don't get it. Give it to them. Okay, I agree to an extent that yes, let us start with poems that I even don't. These days, I don't like the word accessible anymore because it's like it gives that kindergarten feeling.
God, I
Because
beg.
I love. Wait
Crop
now,
the
now you talk
word.
am, now
I
you
think
talk
I'm
am.
mistake.
Wait,
We in a lip balm. Hey,
wait, okay, wait. That's not where I'm going. Calm down. That's not where I'm going. I'm more of the fact that okay, I love Mary Oliver, yeah, and a lot of people do think she's even kindergarten, yeah, and no, I'm serious. A lot of people do think that, right? I don't argue with them. I don't have the time for that, right? But the thing is that for me, in my own personal canon, beside Mary Oliver, Okigbo can sit confidently, comfortably. Do you understand? And I know that that's a very personal whatever conclusion or whatever. So the thing is that I believe wholeheartedly that in as much as we're trying to push Mary Oliver type poems to lure people in, that's what I call it. We're luring people in as much as we're doing that, I believe that we should not, because we don't want to push people away, hide the poems that we consider to be obscure. We have to make it all available. Let the spectrum be available that much so that in quotes, this idea of people who now get worried about the types of poems that go popular. That's why structures are necessary. Because if we have a sort of poets.org that pushes out poems, Nigerian poems, every single day, and today they push, let me see one simple poem that I think I have, my one kindergarten poem in quotes,
God,
like they
I
have named it.
beg.
Yeah,
You won't get
sorry,
this
sorry, sorry.
kindergarten.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Ah,
Oh God. Oh yeah, sorry now. Okay. Let's say today the magazine pushes out oh, by the way, I also think our magazine should be doing poem a day. All our magazines, every one of them. I think they should
hmm.
put that. No, I'm serious. I think if you have poems on your website that you've published prior, I think you should be doing you have enough material for poem a day.
Yeah, I do.
You don't need to, yeah, you don't need to start soliciting out there or whatever. So even we're going to have to do that eventually in Poetry Column, in Poetry Songwater and all that. So look at that now. So if today they push out Sunset in Songwater, a poem, and tomorrow they push out Njoku Nonso's poem, the person does not have a choice but to read Njoku Nonso. Do you get what I'm saying? And the third day they push out let me see another kindergarten. Yeah, sorry. But you guys get the point. So that's the idea that I think we must employ in as much as we want to give out poems that have mass appeal, blah blah blah, easily digested. We must also put out poems right beside it. Put the Okigbo there, put the Njoku Nonso there, put the Peter Akinlabi there. Let them, they'll read it, they won't get it, they'll close the tab. But I promise you, 2-3 years down the line, as long as we make the poems omnipresent, like the poems are always there. If you wake up tomorrow, even though you don't check the poem a day, there's a poem there for you. Eventually, people will permit the word, they will grow to these things, and they'll be able to enjoy Akinlabi and Rupikur in the same sentence. That's just what I think. If you want to contradict me, that's your
Yeah,
problem.
I actually want to. Well, I think Michael might want to talk. If I
Yeah,
want to
Michael.
differ, I want to differ a bit anyway.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
the sense that even me as a poet, there are certain poems I see and I just shut the book or shut the website. So really, it's not about you getting people to love or read every kind of poem. You get? But making it available.
I get that. Yeah, I get
making
that.
it available. That's the key. You cannot, like they say, you can force the horse to the river. You cannot force it to drink.
If you
And it's
put
not even limited to
certain
poetry.
perfumes
There's
on the
even films.
I get.
There are films
I
that
agree.
people don't like.
Yeah.
There are genres of films that I would not watch.
Exactly.
For
I don't
any,
watch
no matter how
romance.
you bring it to me. So I think that it's fine.
Word.
It's not by force.
I agree. Oh my god. I agree. But that horse by the river, you put if you pad the water with like this really nice thing that the horse likes, it will taste the water. It will taste.
Yeah.
So wait. I'm not trying to impose what I think, but I get what you guys are saying. I agree to an extent. That's why it's a panel, right? You guys can have your own opinion.
Yeah.
My own is that opinion. The purpose of this panel, even for our listeners, is that your own opinion on how to propagate poetry be obsessive about it. Michael, you wanted to say something. Let me not conclude before you say something.
I wanted to say that while we are discussing, we should acknowledge the limitations of poetry. I think.
Hey,
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now carry on.
I think we can get too ambitious to think that poetry is new.
Exactly.
Let me mute myself.
Poetry is not new, dude. Poetry can only do as much as poetry can do. Just like not fiction can do as much as fiction can do. Yes, there are times that poetry will outdo fiction. There are times that fiction will outdo poetry. I'm speaking of the past, like the Renaissance period when poetry was poetry, and it outdid, majorly because it was the close to the only genre. So yeah, but now that we are here, we have to acknowledge that there's so much we can do with poetry. There's so much we can push poetry to. So we shouldn't think that we can take poetry to that place. Now, no, we shouldn't think that we can take poetry to that place that it would compete Burna Boy's kind of songs and all of that. We should, like Pamilerin said, we should also acknowledge that as much as we want to believe that poetry is, in quote, accessible, poetry is a high intellect form of art. So, and we know the society that we are in. I'm speaking of the world globally. So we shouldn't think that everybody would read the kind of poems that I'm speaking to Pamilerin over that we want them to read. So
Hey, wait.
I
See,
think
let me
that you
tell
guys
you.
have been ignoring performance poetry as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
We're not
I
talking a
wanted
lot
to give
about how performance
true.
poetry can actually help.
I was coming to
Okay.
performance.
Because
I wanted
performance, okay, let me hear
There
you.
was this scenario. It sounded condescending there, but there was this scenario. I was at the ALS. I am a performance coach too. I moonwalk sometimes as a performance coach. But that day I was reading. So there was this. I had to read before this performance. So when I read, I finished reading my poems as usual. Only about two people will snap, and then one person would say something great about the poem, and then the rest of the people would just sit in silence, and they're like, ah. I'm thinking they're like, what is this guy saying? So I came back. I came back and I sat down with the person that said something about my poem, and then someone performed. And when the person sat down, the guy was like, "You see that guy that just performed? They are the ones that will introduce people to your kind of poem. They are like the entrance to your kind of poems." It was condescending though to me because I'm also a performance coach. Sometimes I can do what that guy did. But yes, I understand the place of performance poetry in the whole ecosystem. However, this is me speaking.
Hey,
Personally
let me see.
Just
Let
throw
see.
jam
You guys,
on my art
as
form.
much as Wait, okay, you will talk now. Sorry, let me just in as much as I that's why I had to mute myself so that it will not be rowdy. You're welcome. Oh Jesus, I never do this stuff. You guys, you're welcome. Thank you for listening to those in the audience. This panel is about literary structures as key to poetry evangelism. We've been discussing. Wait, you will catch up. Wait, calm down. Now, here's the thing. I believe that I agree with what Mike said. I agree with what Faith said. I agree with what Jide Badmus is saying. I just think that um, I feel like for certain things to be possible, you need to be delusional. You need to be delusional that, okay, I get it. People are not going to like this particular kind of poems, blah, 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 even though we put it in their faces. But I always look at the Christian example. That's why I love the coined term poetry evangelism. In the Christian case, there was no point preaching if your sermon is going to get you killed in the end. You are going to die, man. Why are you now giving your life to this sort of thing? That's how I think this pushing the poetry evangelism should be, in the sense that, okay, people will not like this. Okay, I have it. But as for me and my family and my organization, we are going to push that poem that say does not have mass appeal. Because inevitably, I'm so confident in the power of exposure. I'm confident in the power of exposure. If we can have people in Palestine quoting poems by Mahmoud Darwish, have we read Mahmoud Darwish poems? Those poems are long and winded. But we have people in times of war quoting Mahmoud Darwish. I mean, they can quote Okigbo too.
So, PJ.
Sorry, I'll calm down. Sorry. Yeah.
Look at it this way.
Okay.
You listen to a song, and okay, there's this popular song right now. Joy is coming. Personally, I don't like that song, but that part always comes to mind. So you can have a long poem, and someone sees a part. Maybe someone just quotes it, sees a part that applies to him at that moment in time and uses it. For me, Kate said something. She said, we're not talking about the performance. And that's why I spoke about employing other mediums. You cannot get everybody to like reading. You cannot even get everybody to sit down and listen to someone perform on stage.
True.
But you can also get people. These festivals that we are doing, we have all these poetry festivals. I think they're a big step to achieving some of these things, in the sense that they bring a lot of things together. 78 Psalmist as a poetry movie, right? That
amazing.
That was shown at Lip Fest.
Yeah.
A certain group of people who would not normally listen with poetry or would watch that because it has a documentary feel to it. It's talking about the Benin history. It's also visual. So no matter how hard whatever is saying, no matter how difficult whatever they will still watch. So for me, evangelism is not about converting people to love every part of poetry, but just making it out there, putting them out there such that people who don't even know they can fall in love with any aspect of poetry, stumble on them and fall in love with them.
Oh, I agree with this.
So that's my take on it.
I think you have better.
If you want to take milk all your life, you just drink Jide Badmus' poem. Just milk. Soft.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah. Okay, Faith. Sorry, you say were maligning, performance poetry. That was not the intention. Carry on. You wanted to add something.
To be honest, I think he has really echoed what I wanted to say. And I don't think performance poetry is just about accessibility or accessible poetry. I think that it's an art form that has borrowed from other art forms or other literary formats, because we've borrowed elements from theater, from fiction, from music, and the whole idea of performance poetry is very different from like the aim of regular poetry. So one thing I'll just say, what I'm just trying to say is the rules for performance poetry is not the same as page poetry. That's something you guys need to also accept and admit. And there are also things that page poets can do that performance poets cannot do. But there are also things that performance poets can do that page poets cannot do. And it's not a case of which is better or which is less or higher.
No,
It's
yeah,
a case
yeah.
of the two of them have their own place and their own tool. Now we're talking about the difficulty in poetry getting to different spaces. But if you agree with me, right now in Nigeria, performance poetry is gaining ground a lot. I'm
In
saying
every
this as a
space, yeah.
performance poet. Performance poets are performing in almost every conference or event. These are not even literary spaces, because I personally I appreciate what
They don't want you Okigbo. Ah, God, sorry,
I
sorry, sorry.
appreciate the fact that we're
And
doing literary
the,
festivals and all of that. But I think that we also need our work to get into non-literary festivals, other events as well. And I think that performance
Absolutely, yeah.
poetry is bridging that gap for from tech conferences to musical events to shows. Right now, performance poetry is actually doing that evangelism, whether it's in the way that people would like or not want. I think that performance poetry is really catching on that, and it's important that other forms collaborate with us on that. In most literary spaces, there's this awkwardness to performance poets. Like some people don't see it as important as other
I
art
asked.
forms. Lagos Poetry Festival, definitely, because it's essentially a poetry festival. Performance poets still get a space to shine and show their work. But I noticed that in other spaces, there's this, oh, we're just for entertainment, but really not, because we're utilizing so many things. It's not that very easy
There's
to
nothing.
cram a
There's nothing
poem.
bad
And
if it's entertainment.
what do you say?
There's nothing bad in it, even if
Yeah,
it's
it.
just
But the thing is,
entertainment.
it can be entertainment. It can also be
Yeah.
awareness. It can
And
also
still
be
be taken
relatability. It can also
seriously.
be
Yeah.
educative. Like there's so many things you can do with performance poetry beyond even just entertainment. It's just that the poets that people are seeing and making those comments about are maybe doing it for entertainment. Those poets, I'm sure they have
True.
other forms of poetry. But I'll say that if you want something to get into a space that is not often in, you need to use other innovative ways. And that's what performance poetry is doing, with using audio, with using visuals, because it's mostly performance poets that do poetry films, poetry audio, poetry exhibitions. I'm just saying that
That's
we're
true.
showing what is
No, it's
possible,
true. It's true.
and it's now up to other art forms to borrow from that
Catch up.
and also
Mm.
tap into those spaces, because you guys can page poets can also exhibit their work as well. And I'm sure there are a couple that are doing that. And I've seen videos on social media where poets are reading their works as well online. And it's also it depends on how you're doing it and how engaging it is. It's not. I think that everything has its own place. And to correct my kindergarten this thing, I'm not saying that certain kinds of poems are kindergarten.
You brought it back
Oh,
What
that
I'm
one
again. You
don't
trying
brought
to
it back
go.
say
That
is
again.
one
there are
don't.
different styles of poetry. There are different forms. There are
Word.
different forms and types of poetry. And some types, narrative poetry, for example, some types of poetry are just more similar to what people are already used to. That's what I'll just say. So there are some poems that resemble what people are already used to, and those are the kind of poems that might be good to lead people into poetry. Please, if anybody's taking that again, I'm
I've
done.
not said it before.
I have to stand up for performance poets because it is enough. Do you people know what we are doing? Thank you, Jide, for talking
Word.
about what 78 Psalmist did. We're breaking grounds and leading the way here. Okay, I'm done.
That's yeah. Okay, I think Michael has his hand raised. Just to so we'll wrap up this whole thing.
I began by acknowledging I am honored for what you've been doing. So yes, spoken word has been doing a lot. I am a performance poet too. I also said something about acknowledging the limitations of poetry. I think again that we ought to acknowledge the limitations of poetry, and we also have to define what poetry
I
is.
cannot really hear
Also,
Michael. I think that's the second problem.
Mm.
Okay, you can't really
Yeah, I can't
hear
really
him.
hear what he's saying.
Can you hear me now?
Wait, Michael, can you remove the AirPods and try to?
Can you hear me now?
Don't worry, just talk. Maybe it's my own phone.
No, it's
I
not
can't
No,
your
no,
really
no.
phone.
It's.
hear.
I think it's
Oh,
everyone.
okay.
Which village is Michael in?
Ah, poetry evangelist. If they want small town,
Abby.
Michael, can you talk again? Let's try to.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Welcome.
So, I was saying that I began by talking about I am on it, and so
Way better.
that was me acknowledging spoken word poetry. However, I still say we should not lose sight of the limitations of poetry, and we should not lose of what poetry is to start with, because in our desperation to get, we might lose what poetry is. Faith, the spoken word poets that I entertain. I've been in conversations where spoken word poets, they can water their poetry to anything just access that. It refers to spoken word poetry. I was talking about something like that, losing sight of what poetry is, so much so that you get access. So acknowledging the limitations of poetry would give you a sort of insight on how to navigate such. Yeah, but spoken word poetry, pop spoken.
If I may ask, what are those limitations you think are there?
Good question.
Um, right now, poetry.
Yeah.
Right now, poetry cannot get the access that music is getting. When conversations are being, when I'm in places where conversations are being made and access is being discussed, people are always looking. The people in that discourse are always looking at how to get poetry to that place of music. But I think that for now, poetry cannot reach that place of music. It cannot get that numbers. Let me use numbers. It can't get that number.
Okay, the numbers.
Hmm.
It is well.
Well, I'm
I'm just going
divided
to
on
comment
that.
in a very civil manner.
I don't think poetry can get to the obvious, maybe the level of, in terms of millions or the numbers that they are getting. But I think that poetry can get to a place of music, maybe not up to the level that it is, but it can get to a certain level. It can reach certain spaces, because I'm seeing some poets and they are just showing possibilities of what the future can be. And I think that as much as we have ideas about the limitations, I think we should also try our best to be
Yeah,
open to the possibilities, because there's so much that the digital landscape can do, and I don't think that we're as aware of the possibilities. And yes, there are worries and there are inherent issues, but I still believe that
yeah,
never say never, and don't we should not really put limitations on the possibility, because you really do not know for sure what can be and what cannot be. So that's just my own thought process.
So I said something. Sorry, PJ. Let me just, because of this that was said.
no, carry on, carry on.
I said I said something when we started. I want to lean a bit towards Michael. Maybe not totally, but I don't think poetry is meant to reach the level of, say, what movies will do or what music will do. What I want us to see, what I want us to be able to spread is the fact that poetry can be found in anything, in every facet of our life. Poetry can be found in movies, can be found in music, and for me, if that is happening more often, I'm satisfied. I still also don't think it can reach the level of music, because music, but when you listen to music, you see poetry in it.
Hmm.
So I think to a large extent, poetry is meant to lean on a lot of things to actually make it attractive. If not, it goes back to being as classist as it was
Hmm.
in the past.
You all have spoken well.
Well, I get what you
See,
guys
see,
are
see.
saying, Shan. I'm
Wait,
not
let
going
me
to
read
argue.
comments that I'm
I
saying.
get what you guys are
Let me
saying,
read
and there is
comments.
a lot of truth in it. Just saying, but I'm just saying that let's not say never, because you really never know. That's just my own.
Wait, let me read out comments. There's a comment here by I think KIS. Oh, KIS, welcome. He's here. He said, "Is good music not oral poetry accompanied
Exactly.
by instruments?
Exactly.
Is good music ahead?" Then I think Dyer also says something. He said, "Poetry is not inaccessible. It is the schools, education systems make it so. African students are taught Shakespeare before BPTech in colonial languages over their own, with exams over engagement. But poetry thrives where systems fail, in oral tradition, spoken word, and the streets." That's see. I agree with what everybody has said, that poetry, in quotes, is not like, if we're talking number, these Spotify-ness of things permits that language where we're tracking like the number of streams or how many people are listening to it currently. You get what I'm saying? I agree in that
Yeah.
sense, but I just think we need to be as delusional as the abstract expressionists. When they came on the scene, people were telling them this is not art. People were telling them, what are you doing? But today, eh? But today, there are some abstract paintings that are even much more expensive than
Mm.
realism and hyper-realism paintings. So that's the kind of I completely agree, like, with the reality of things on ground, in quotes, that we have to tailor these things. Like Jide Badmus has said, we must tailor certain things to certain audiences. And that when Michael says that we must acknowledge the limitations of poetry, my own is we must be delusional enough. Okay, let's round up with this now. Look at what Archive NG is doing, that their fellowship for different, when Faith mentions collaboration, Archive NG, what they're doing with their fellows, and the fellow that is representing poetry is looking back to is it Black Orpheus, and bringing out those ancient those older early poems. Now, for apart from digitizing that work, if we get someone that, like everybody has said, we should put it in different mediums and all that. So if we get someone that reads the poems, if we get much more engagement with that type of thing, I think these are the ways that we can make poetry as omnipresent as possible. I think for me, the variable that is much more important is that it has to be near omnipresent. That somebody wakes up, they see something on a billboard, they don't understand what it means just yet, but the graphic is so cool, right? Like Faith said, we must collaborate with others. The graphic is so cool. They go online, there's this quote, so to speak, but the graphic is really cool. They don't get it yet, but they like the graphic. They like maybe a poetry movie that engages Peter Akinlabi's work. G gets even see the first time. I'm going to be honest. The first time I read Surville's first book, the one that won NLNG in 2015, back then, a tributary in servitude. I know. See, my head just the hot.
It's bad.
So like,
I know it's listening.
I'm not. It's not like I don't understand these limitations that we're talking about. I really do get them, yeah. But my own be say, in as much as those limitations are there, we have to be delusional. We have to make sure our structures are as delusional as the people, as the participants. Because if we have a group now, say, imagine someone told Swedi that you want to do literary festival abroad, UK and Nigeria, and he actually answered the person, then this panel will not hold right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have to be as delusional as possible and we don't have to, in quotes, start big like Jide Badmus said. I think I'm rounding up now because we just had 2 hours and we just have 4 minutes left. Thank you all for being here. before I wrap it up, I just want to appreciate everybody that's been part of this conversation from the beginning. Thank you to Benue Book and Arts Festival. Thank you to even our Tamilore co-host who the network messed up, what she would have shared with us. Thank you to the panelists, Michael, Jide, Faith. Thank you to everyone in the audience. I can see Samuel, I can see Jide, Salawu, I can see Kies, I can see Jackie, I can see Ilya Kambi, I can see Abubakar, Chimezi, Son of, I can see Peter and Tin, I can see Anna. Thank you. I can see Audrey. Thank you. So if you have more questions, please put them in the comment section so that we'll focus on the questions for the remainder, for the really short time we have. So that's what I think on my end, that, okay, let me list out some of the things that people have said that will help poetry evangelism. Faith mentioned that we should have inter-university poetry slams, because the purpose of this panel is that we walk away with solutions. So Faith said we should have inter-university poetry slams. We should engage more with the universities, which I agree with. A lot of book prizes in the US, in the UK, in Australia, they are run by universities. So someone is requesting the mic. Who is requesting the mic? Who is requesting the mic? Okay, the person is not requesting anymore. Okay, Jide Badmus said that we should, on a personal level, that we should share our poems as frequently as possible. Don't be shy about it. Michael Imossan says that we should learn to collaborate more on the manuscript level. If you want to tie that across mediums, you can also tell performance poets to collaborate at the album level, poetry movie level. Earlier, I said something about being delusional enough to have poet bots. I want to see Adedayo poet bots that will just be posting poems from Dayos, or Jide Salawu poet bot, or KIS poet bots. Do you understand? I want to see Romeo poet bots, that sort of thing. Where, because for some of the writers that I love, sometimes I just look up their poet bots and they are posting quotations from that. So this panel is just plant and their ideas in all your heads, and when you leave here, just go start all the poet bots that you love, and don't worry, people will retweet. And even if they don't, no, I'm serious. Even if they don't retweet, they will engage with it in different ways. Jide Badmus also says that we should use it as a lifestyle. We should see it more as a lifestyle than a religion. Michael Imossan says we should have a behavior of piety and devotion towards poetry evangelism for that to be possible. And earlier, I think I also mentioned Chimamanda's rollout as an example of publicity that is necessary for poetry evangelism. And then when we're talking about stylistic choices, that one, there's still debate about the kindergarten comment. You guys, I'm not letting this go. Then I mentioned 78 Psalmist, that is poetry movie at what's it called, at Lipfest, yeah, at Lipfest. And I also touched on Archive NG, what they're doing with the poetry fellow currently that is exploring Black Orpheus. So for instance, for the performance poets, let's wrap up with this. For the performance poets, I'm pretty confident that people were doing performance poetry like in the 90s or something, maybe not as the way they do it now, but it's possible. Because I encountered, there was this time I encountered this easy research that Tanure or Jide did. Is it Tanure? No, I think it's Remi Raji. And it was about women poets. And that's what usually, that was one of the radicalization regarding archiving that I had. It listed about 50 women Nigerian poets. 50. And those names,
I can't mention.
Thank you. That's where I'm going. Out of those names, thank you. Out of those names in our research, we can barely recognize like 2 or 3, right? Apart from, I think this woman, is it Taiwo or Taye something? So it's really old research. So that's the thing. That's the point of this panel. All of us were here, we're chilling, we're happy, we're writing poems, we're getting published. I'm always thinking 30 years from now, what's going to happen to all of this current hyperness that we're having, with all this hysteria and joy that we're saying we're doing serious work, we're doing important work. If, for instance, that's why I always put ideas out there. Let someone go and do it. For instance, I see the Jide Salawu is here now. Look at the recent anthology, African Urban Echoes. about poetry of place, right? That they've put together now. We need a website that's going to have a compilation of all anthologies that have been put out. Even if it's by name, the anthology does not have to be, even if it's just a link to purchase, you understand? And someone is already working on that. So we need that also for, say, all our publishers. They need to be more collaboration so that someone says, if someone types on Google Nigerian poets, I'm not seeing Chimamanda. Please type it on your Google, Nigerian poets. You see Chimamanda's picture there. That's because we're not, no, I'm serious. That's because we're not doing, like, we don't have enough propagation of contemporary poetry. You understand what I'm saying?
So,
So
so if I might cut you,
cut
just
me.
there's something any of us have not mentioned. Yeah, we are saying collaboration, we are saying put out, do the work, passion, and you said it yourself. That Sebio said at a point, passion will die. You get, there's one key thing that we have not mentioned.
Yeah.
The funds.
Yeah.
We need to get to a level whereby our institutions, the government, people that are well-to-do see a need to actually put their funds into these endeavors, into poetic and poetry endeavors. You understand? You see people who can buy artworks for millions, but will not even, you get, we should be able to get to that stage whereby we come together, present something that can actually get us funding from, and I think it's more of a Nigerian problem anyway, in the sense that the arts might not really, how would I say it? People would rather fund movies, like you said, than look into art. So it's a key thing. How do we tackle this? I think we let it keep our mind, or we are purposely sidestepping it. Font is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
KIS and Swede and me or anybody can come together and say we have this big project to do, to archive this and that. And what if in 2 years' time we can't pay for the domain? You get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's funds is key.
I think Praise wants to say
And
something.
not personal funds.
I also want to say something.
Oh, okay, Tamilore. Yeah. Afterwards, then Praise. Please, anybody wants to say something? Just request the mic. We want to wrap it up with the questions from the audience and contributions. Let's just. All right, Tamilore, carry on.
So I just wanted to add to what Faith said. I think that one part that we don't explore is poetry as exhibitions. Because lovers of art go out to look at visual art, look at photographies. Photographers exhibit their works, painters exhibit their works. And in 2022, I think 2022 or 2023, I had something where I exhibited my poems at different exhibitions, one in Nigeria, one in the UK, one in Germany. And it helped bridge that gap. People were able to, like, people did not know that there were people writing poetry in this way. And it wasn't, I thought the way I wrote it was complex, but people loved it. They could relate to it because they could see it. It was outside like a paper or something. They could see it live in front of them. And we could also explore framing poems and selling them if you want to sell them. Just having people have a piece of poetry in their houses. I feel like that would also bridge the gap as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's really insightful. Please, the next person. Okay, we have 3 hands raised up. Okay, we have.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Praise. So I think I've been enjoying this conversation, but I just want to say something. When Pamilerin started to mention like when you Google Chimamanda, you see when you Google Nigerian poet, you see Chimamanda. So this is something I've talked about even with Pamilerin about how poetry needs better PR. You understand? So it's not always about just doing something. You need to make noise about what you're doing, and like you need to make noise about what you're doing to the right people. So if we want poetry to like be mainstream, you understand, it's not just about someone writing a poem and publishing it. I know there are a couple of people who publish poems and they don't just like, nobody knows that they are like writing these things. And that's just about working towards making it more mainstream. And something that Tamilore just said now about poetry exhibition, that's something that's really amazing. And also people who print
Yep.
their poems and frame it. And because I think I saw someone, a poet like that, doing that on Instagram. I think it's Ozioma. She's printed our poems like in
Yeah.
frames and people can hang them. So yeah, so that's something there. And also what what David 70 Samis did with the poetry something last week. That was at Leap Fest, I think, or was it K Fest? So that was something amazing. So we just need to be like more experimenting, because I think I read a research that there are less TV comedies because a lot of people are doing skits on social media. So we need to start leveraging digital media. You understand? Leveraging digital media, leveraging visual things. It's not just about writing and just like letting it be there. Like, let's put these things in people's faces. Be more intentional. Look at the rollout for Chimamanda now. Everybody's like, oh wow, wow, wow. So why can't someone else do it? Like, why you shouldn't feel shy for making that noise about your art. You spent a lot of time writing it. So when it's out, like make a lot of noise about it. So like, that's what Funke Akindele does. That our movies have good PR. So let's put that type of like marketing, like marketability into our poetry. People used to talk about Kendrick Lamar being a conscious rapper, but look at him now. He's mainstream. So it's just about like we need to like strategize about making poetry more marketable. And that does not necessarily mean that we should drop the depth of our poems or make it simple and whatever and stuff. It's about making people stop and see this thing that we're doing. And I just think that by strategizing and doing relevant partnership, I'm sure there are a lot of young people that are writing currently that work for journals, like, that are culture journalists and culture custodians. It's just about like, you can get a video from a festival like this now and promote it on Zikoko, promote it on Pulse. It doesn't really cost much. Just get the things out there, like make more noise about it. That's where we're going to be able to get funding from all these places. Like, I work with MTN, they sponsor a lot of crap, and I'm wondering why poetry is not
Wow,
getting
calm down
sponsorship.
before they tackle you. They will
Oh,
tackle you.
sorry,
They
shit, I
sponsor a
forgot.
lot
This
of
is being
good stuff.
recorded. Sorry. I forgot. Oh
A
my
lot of
god. Oh
amazing.
my god. Oh my god. Okay, like they sponsor a lot of things that I don't think are culturally or socially
No,
relevant.
they
You understand?
sponsor a lot of rap. A lot of rap.
They sponsor a lot of things that
Wow.
are not culturally or socially relevant. Do you get? So I just feel like so I think I remember seeing I don't remember her name very well. Is it Wana? She's a spoken word poet. I don't think I remember her name well. So I love what she's doing. She gets to perform at events that has nothing to do with poetry. Do you get? At
Yep,
events
even
that
I
has
be
nothing to do
quick
with
too.
poetry. What do you say?
I say, yeah, even I be quick too. Those
Yes,
that's
I be
what
quick.
Faith
Yes,
was talking
I
about
worked on a I
earlier.
worked on a campaign, C Niger, with MCN. She's one of the ambassador. So like, these are people that are doing things. I think it's just about being more marketable and attracting that sponsorship and partnership and being able to take our stuff mainstream. So I'm just gonna end it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, praise. I see two hands. Sodi was raising his hand. Savio correctly has his hand up, and Michael. So any other person, please request. So we'll wrap up by 8:20. I say it was 6:20. Swedi, over to you.
No, I would like to take the last one so that I can also do a very quick announcement
Okay,
if
okay,
that's
okay,
okay.
okay. Serve you then.
Okay, hello everyone. It's been a very beautiful session. Lots of very brilliant, useful contributions that I know. You know, after this discussion, we would help us in one way or the other to take the work that we are doing further. But I just want to say something about structures and collaborations now. Um, Yes, I have. There were those days in my earlier years when everything I was doing was strictly running on passion and personal funds. But as you grow older and the issues of life come your way, you begin to reassess and realign your priorities. But what I have also seen in other climes is the fact that when we consciously begin to think about structures, think about it from a business point of view, for example, and not just something that we are passionate about. Should you be passionate about it? Absolutely yes. But also, what can we learn from the world of business? I'm not talking about necessarily commercializing it. I'm talking about learning from it and applying that structure to it such that, for example, it is able to run itself for a couple of years. Back in time, I did some research about prices, for example, and some of the longest running magazines and journals that we know in the West. And then I found that at some time or the other, some of them have had not just grants, but something endowment, a sort of endowment also. So, for example, you have $20,000, for example. Okay, let's say let me speak in naira terms. You have 10 million naira, and somebody is saying, I want to endow a prize for 10 million naira. Typically, if you think about it solely based on passion, you might want to expend the entire 10 million naira on organizing that prize or that event for the first year without recourse to, oh, how is this going to happen
How does
next
it
year?
continue?
How is this going to happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now? So basically, but if we think about it in the line of structure, one of the things we can do is set up a trust, put that money, that 10 million naira, which is the startup endowment for that prize, for that event, for that publication, whatever it is, put it in a sort of trust. That it's not any, it's something that gives you, that ensures, for example, that that money is always going to be there and you get some sort of returns. That money is not going to disappear. Then you sit down and say, okay, what can we do with this 10 million naira? Okay, how do we program this event or program this price such that this 10 million naira sees us through maybe the first 5 years, maybe the first 10 years of this? How much is going to be the price money? How much are we going to expend on administering the price, the administration, the logistics, the media coordination behind the price? So rather than wake up one day and say, oh, I'm announcing that I have a 10 million naira prize to give, I could say, for example, that I have a 500,000 naira prize to give. And this 500,000 naira prize is going to happen every year for the next 10 years, for example. I'm just using this as a general example. I'm sure it has other applications. So I can say, okay, we have a 10 million naira endowment, either from myself or from some other individual or body. And then we say the price money is 500,000 naira, for example. And then we say, okay, what's the administrative cost? What's the media buying cost? We factor all of that into it. Now, that money goes into a kind of trust. Depending on how the trust is set up, a part of the money could also go into some highly secured investments such that the rate of inflation does not erode the capital that is going into it. So if we begin to think about, this is just one possibility. There are several other possibilities. But that way, I am sure that, for example, this price I'm starting, or this festival I'm starting, or this monthly reading, or this campaign I'm starting, I have the wherewithal to say maybe the next 5 years it's going to run. And then, or maybe the next 10 years it's going to run. And before that money runs out, we have breathing space. We have time to rethink the idea, what is working, what is not working, how else can we raise funds to keep this going. So the longer and short of everything I'm saying is that we need to think more, because I'm saying this because we're talking about structures. We're talking about structures. When people talk about the creative industries in Nigeria, just 3 aspects of the creative industries are typically spoken about. That is Afrobeats, the Nigerian music scene, Nollywood, the movie scene, and then the business of fashion. You can't even, as a businessman, get any funding from any financial institution if you work in the creative industry and you are outside of those 3 areas that I mentioned. So, what do
Wow.
we begin to do for ourselves? What can we now? Okay, let me just add to this. Now, the bank, a financial institution, can give you money based on your personality and how well you run your personal account, but not as a result of the fact that you do business in the creative industry outside of those 3 areas I mentioned. So I think that even if we need to begin to put these structures in place individually. And a lot of people here and outside of this space are doing fantastic work. Fantastic work. I just feel that we need to also, think structurally, put structures behind this, and begin to build bridges, collaborate with one another. The goal is to build a robust industry that everybody can benefit from. I can only do so much. Each one of us has our limits. There's a limit to how far we can go. But if we come together and look for areas where we can collaborate, we would be able to get this industry running. Because as it is now, we all know it's a jungle. There's no industry to it. And I think that the onus is on us in this generation to bring the industry to the creative industry. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Servio. Thank you. That was really illuminating. We also have, I think there's someone with their hands raised. There was Audrey. Audrey, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. So
Good
I
evening.
think that I want to come in from the aspect of practicality. I work in the entertainment industry, and poetry has been a very coveted form of art, and it only makes sense with evolution for us to want it to go mainstream. I came in during the conversation where somebody was talking about how we could go part to part with music, and I thought that was very brilliant, to be honest. So there was a time Tam sent me a link to somebody's EP or an album, and what she did was poetry but in form of music, and I thought that was very brilliant, and I thought that it would, I would see it everywhere, and the PR would just be really good, right? But that didn't happen, or maybe I did not explore a PR to that level. And for it to matter in the creative industry in Nigeria, then we should not, confine poetry to just exhibition nights and poetry nights and all of those things. If you want to go part to part with music, especially in Nigeria, then you have to work in that light. You have to be in the studio. You have to record as an EP, record as a single, record as an album, and then open a new. The thing with music consumerism in Nigeria is it is very poor, but at the same time, it is very impressive. When you release a work of art like that, it would take a moment for people to think, look, what's this person trying to do? Can I get into it? Blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, it's like interest sparking up here and there, right? But if we're not given, then we
Yeah.
cannot take it. We cannot consume. So instead, again, on practicality, instead of waiting for a fund or a government to fund or body to fund, which is which I don't think would happen, because we know the things that are being given priority everywhere in the world, right? And I would assume that we can start to collaborate. Every sector of every part of creativity has a way in which it is fine-tuned. You could do something now and you would find another incredible way to do it, or you would see somebody do it in another incredible way that you never thought of. So we've been having this exhibition nights, we've been having this poetry nights, we've been talking and we've been reading our poems, but somebody's recording in the studio. Somebody is starting a collaboration where this is an arm that you can explore. This is an arm of poetry that you can explore. I preach collaboration all the time. Find people who are like minds. It doesn't have to boil down to funds all the time. I mean, that would be very good, but if it's not coming, then you find something else. It's from there that you find the exposure that you really need, and then people start to wonder, people start to show interest. We all study poetry, even if it's the poorest form, in primary school and in high school, right? And I think that if we start to impute it in a way where people would listen more, or it would pique their interest, then we might open a can that we never thought was possible to open. Consumerism is poor, yes, but you only have to pique people's interest. I co-own an NGO, and what we do is train girls in music business and audio engineering. And I've thought about it. I've A&R'd the music. I've checked on songwritings that was sent to the mail and all of that. And I've wondered why somebody hasn't done anything in poetry. And I realized that it is considered, maybe not by intellectuals or people who like literature, but every other person just finds it sappy or boring or just normal. So why don't you pick interest and make it more interesting? You don't have to, limit yourself to exhibition nights and all of those. To me, these conferences are very boring, except you're doing something different. Now, do something in which people would actually listen, people would show interest. And I feel like that's how most things start, to be honest. And I just wanted to mention that don't wait for funds. Do collaborations. Do it in a different way. And people will come on board. It might take time, but people will come on board if you keep doing it. Find
Audrey,
the way you want a
hello?
mainstream poetry, then you do it the way the mainstream people are doing it. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Wow, that was really epic. Can we hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. We had 2 hours, and we were short our time by about 23 minutes, and I'm really grateful for everyone's contributions. People who were here, people who have left. I think I've learned a lot from all sides, even people who have different opinions on how we can move forward this poetry evangelism thing. From Servio to Audrey to Michael, Jide, Badmus, Praise, people who have contributed so far. I feel like I'm missing some, but I think Dio posted a tweet to I think KIS also posted something, a contribution earlier. So thank you all. I want to hand over to Swede now, the organizer, Pata Pata, and so he will just wrap it up. And thank you all for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, PJ, for everything you've done. Thank you to Tamilore, Faith, Michael, Jide, and every other person who has contributed. I'm particularly grateful to have Seville and KIS here, and all the other people who contributed. Praise, Audrey. I learned a lot from this session, and I would try to implement some of the things that we've even spoken of here in the nearest future, like the poetry exhibition that Tamilore spoke of. I'm wondering why we didn't think of it, but I think it's something we're going to try and do at the Dome Book and Arts Festival. So if anybody is interested in having their poem, a short poem exhibited at the festival,
You
we
don't
can
want to keep to.
a
Oh
short
my
poem. It can be difficult. It can be difficult if you want break anybody's neck with it. We'll try to put an illustration to it. If we can't um, do a proper illustration, we'll probably generate something. But if you want to have your poem exhibited at the Bene Book and Arts Festival, please send us an email at chief@bbaaf.com. That's chief, CHIEF, at
Okay.
as in at Gmail, sorry, bbaf.com, BBAAF.com. Then I would also want to mention that in terms of collaborations, a lot of collaborations have been happening. And it's the reason
Mm.
why I know a lot of the people who are on this particular, what do you call it, space? Yes, this particular space. I started doing collaborations with KIS since about 2010-ish. With Serbia, I mean, it's been all my life. So there are certain things that are happening, certain things we see in what we call mainstream poetry that were not even there when we started. There are a lot of things that people like DK have even come to put. And even Faith has
Mm.
done a lot. Faith is still doing a lot. PJ is doing his own bit, Michael is doing his own bit. So we understand collaboration a whole lot, and I'm grateful that we do. I think what we need to do is just do more collaboration. We are collaborating, yes, but we need to do more collaborations. And I think the final thing I would say in reference to every brilliant thing that has been said, this one is largely leaning towards what Sergio said. Yes, it's important to put structures, it's important to create trust, but sometimes it's hard to put money in some of this trust because what you have is not even enough to set the ball rolling. So if you look at the money that we are using, for instance, to do the Book and Arts Festival, it's a lot of money. So by the time you think of how, and I mean, inflation and what Tinubu is doing to us every day, before you put your money in trust, you put your money in a trust, maybe you put 100,000 naira, and then in 5 years' time, you find out that 100,000 naira is like 10 naira of the time when you are putting it at that point. So we need to find a way to beat the system. Maybe we have to start thinking of, instead of doing trust, we might have to start thinking of investment. We might have to start thinking of how we can use certain profitable ventures to fund some of our activities, but everything else follows. So on the final note, we are having the Benue Book and Arts Festival, the physical version in Makodi from Thursday, or rather from Wednesday, the 19th of February to Saturday, the 21st. On Wednesday, we'll be doing a workshop. So, I mean, it's for the learners, the beginners, the ETC. But on Thursday evening, we'll be having an evening of poetry and palm wine, which is another thing I was going to mention. We should always try to mix poetry with something else. Poetry alone doesn't always go. But if you add wine, palm wine, or some other sweet things, you'll be shocked at the people that will start speaking poetry. And there's some people who say that when a little alcohol makes even the most common man a poet. So
Nice.
on Friday and Saturday we'll be having the festival. So if anybody's interested in attending the festival, they can just check the website, which is bbaf.com, www.bbaaf.com, and we'll be very happy to have you. We run out of funds for um, booking in guests and everything, but if you let us know you're coming, we'll try to create space somewhere, even if it's nothing else, to at least interview you, to feature you, and have you perform. I think that's the least we can do. So once again, thank you to everyone who has been on this live, and God bless all of you, and God keep all of us too. I throw a salute.
Well, thank you, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Swedi. Thank you, Serviu. Thank you, KIS. I think KIS is still here. I don't know if you wanted to say something or.
You did.
KIS, can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
We can hear you.
KIS, you want to give us something, advice, anything? Oh well, so thank you all. You can listen back to listen to the recording if you missed, because I know we said a lot at different points. So please go back, listen to it. I don't know how to get this recording on YouTube, because that's another thing. You know, we mentioned archiving. This conversation has to be preserved on YouTube, because so far now YouTube get long life past all the other ones.
Yeah.
So we should find a way around that, and I'll probably discuss with Swedi to find out we can do that. So thank you for the. I put it in the comments section for the exhibition. The email you're supposed to send it to for the poetry exhibition, chief@bbaaf.com. So send your poems for a chance to have it, you know, in an exhibition. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening. All the best in the new week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and also thank you, sweetie, for everything that you're doing for the culture. And it was great speaking to Jide and Michael. You guys said a lot of insightful things, and also PJ as well. So yeah, thanks to
Over to you,
everyone.
Chris. Yeah.